Greetings, pilgrims, and welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage, and today I've got something pretty exciting for you. We are continuing the work we've been doing here with our Fortnite-style pickup items, and as you can see on the screen here, last time what we accomplished were these really cool little tooltips that show up when I hover over the items, and I've made some custom items here using some of the models from a previous episode that I did for a whole bunch of item pickups. I've been using those models, so there is a link in the description. You can go back to that video to download all these models. However, just like last time, I'm going to provide the Unity package export, so you can just take all this and just bring it right into Unity. Okay, so what do we have here? What we have here is the pickups, and we have the tooltips, but now we have to do something when we hit the button. So here's what we're going to do. Is just like Fortnite, when I run over this item and I say, okay, I want this, I'm going to hit the button and a couple of things are going to happen. It's going to pass some data to my management system so that we can say, what is this item, add it to my inventory. We're not doing an official inventory today, but I have been taking copious notes on how to do inventory, and that is coming. Today we're handling this fancy animation. So now what the animation is going to do is, you can see my cursor on the screen here. It's going to go back, up, on top of us, bounce, fall, and shrink. Okay, so let's watch it happen here. I'm going to hit the T key, so T, whoop, there we go. The item came into me. So let me see if I do from this side. Can you see it a little better? Yep, there you go. Out, up, in, and down. There you go. So now I've got a whole bunch of items over here, and you can see this is really fun to just kind of run along this line, and we'll see it happen. And this is very efficient as well. So if I line up properly, here we go. I'm going to just hold forward and run down the items, and here I can just pick up all the items as we go. So really cool. So let's get into how it works, okay? So we're going to do a couple of things. We have our items here, and I have made an update to the script for the items, and then I've also added a new script, and we just need to hook some things up. So the way that the world for our character and for our scene here works is, these are items, but they need to communicate with the overall game logic that is controlling the world, right? So for our Battle Royale series, we've had this object here called BRS mechanics. Now, for this particular scene, I don't have all the other mechanics attached to this. I don't have the plane drop and all that kind of stuff going on. I don't have the zone wall, as you can see, that's nowhere to be seen. This is just a standalone kind of scene that I created to build and test these things, all right? But we still need to have that object, so we have it here, and I called it this. So again, you just create an object. So here, create empty, call it BRS mechanics. It doesn't really matter where you put it in the world, because this is just it's like a think tank object. It's not really an object that is physical. However, I always like to set it at 000 just because we are using that position for our other mechanics. So it's important that we just keep everything at the 0 point. And then we're going to attach this script, and we'll go over that script in a moment, but this script is the inventory manager. So on this is the smarts, or the logic, to figure out which of these items I've picked up, how many of each item I have, all those statistics. We're going to handle that in a separate video, but for now, for today, we're just going to worry about triggering this nice animation, getting that to work, and then we're going to set up the bridge to then pass data along later on, okay? So let me show you the scripts here, and we just have the two scripts, and as you can see, this is the inventory manager so far. It's very, very short, okay? It literally is only doing one thing, just so we can see that it's working, all right? Our other script here, however, has grown quite significantly, and I've marked it here. Anywhere you see this that says new, anything below that and in between little new markers. So for example, this right here is new, all of this is new, all of this is new. I've marked what's new for you so that you know from the old script to this new version, here's what has changed, all right? So if you followed along last week, this is the exact same script. I did update my little header here thing a little bit better, but other than that, it's the same content, but then we've added a little bit. So let's break down what we're going to do and how the script is attaching to all this. So we need a couple of things. For each of our objects, let's just open up one of these. Just like last time, we have the UI base, and we've got the offset and all that kind of stuff that you can change. But now we're dealing a little bit more with this item holder, the model thing. So this is a container, this item holder model object. And again, it is a child of the base object here. Its transform is 000, that's very important. And then underneath that is just whatever model you want. And then you can scale it however you like. You can apply any material you like. all that doesn't matter. All that is kind of not important really. It's just the visuals. But this object is important because this object, we're going to apply an animation to it. And we're going to apply an animation that we build inside of Unity, okay? So the way it works is you take your object that you had last time, that you built with me, all of this stuff, right? Select this guy, the item holder model, and you're going to go to Window, Animation, or you can do Control 6, and you'll get this kind of looking window, but in the center here, it'll say Create Animation. So you just click that, and then give it a name. And then you'll be able to, over here, add some properties. So what we're doing is we're actually animating this property. So if you see, if I drag this over, you can see it's playing the animation even though we haven't triggered it yet, right? So this is the animation that we're going to build together. So what you need to do is click the Add Property, and you want to choose the Item Holder Model Position, and then click Add Property and the Item Holder Model Scale. Because we need to do two things. We're going to animate its position, where it is in the world, and then from here to here, we're going to animate its scale. We're going to shrink it down to almost nothing, okay? And I'll go over with you here what the little markers are. So to set these values, all you have to do is move your cursor here. I'm clicking and dragging, and then when you get to a point that you want to make a change, you alter these values, all right? So in the beginning, nothing gets altered. They're all just static here. First alteration I'm going to do is at the 10th mark, so 0, 0, 0, 5, 0, 10. Right here, I'm going to change the position on the X to 1. So when you make that change, I just click this little thing here, and then I click away. And that sort of sets it. There's a bit of a bug there that if you just hit 1 and hit enter, it might not keep it. So I just hit 1, click this, pretend like I'm going to do one of these, but then just click away. And that solves that bug. So all I'm doing here is saying that at this moment in time, what I want to do is set the position to 1, and these other ones are at 0. So that means it's just going to slide over like that. Then let's go to the 20 mark here, and I'm going to say now X is still 1, and now I'm also going to make Y 1. So that means it's going to go up in the world. And the X being 1 means it's still 1 over right here. There we go. So now I'm going to go a little bit further. So this is 1, 2, 3 ticks further. This guy, I'm going to set the Y to approximately 1.5. 1.5, and then set the key value, okay? And again, you still need 1 for the X here. Then let's go over to at 20, between 25 and 30. Right here, I'm going to start to move it over. So you see here, if we look up top here, so he's there, and then this is starting to move over. So that 1.5 means we're getting a little higher, we're coming closer, and now we're going to move over quite a bit, all right? So this is going to change a couple of values. So right here, we're going to change the position on the X. I've got it at about 0.4, the Y 2.25, and the Z to 0. Okay, so whoop, just like that. Then let's go 2 ticks past 30, and really the Y we're going to set to 2, and the X and Z we're going to set to 0, which means we started at 0, and now we're back at 0, but we're up in the air after we've done all this. That's what gives us this up and over kind of mark. So let's go to 3, 5, and I'm just going to change this to 0, 1.75, 0, over to 40, 0, 1.5, 0, over to 45, 0, 1.75, 0. And what that does is these three right here, it creates a little bounce, There you go, boink. Now, it's getting a little trickier. Let's go to the, just before the 0.5, or maybe it is the 0.5. This time, I have to set values down here because we need the keyframing to go from the beginning, right here, all the way to here. We don't want any change on the scale. So down here for the scale, let's set those all to 1 and make sure they're 1. That means that from the beginning, which it starts at 1, to here, it's not going to change at all, okay? That's very important. Now, for our movement values, again, we were at 1.75 here, so here we're going to go back to 0, 1.5, 0. So that's the official end of the bounce, and then here we're going to begin the scaling and the moving, okay? So from here, let's go over to 1, and now, for the position, we're going to do 0, 1, 0, which means it's about halfway. Our character is roughly 2 units tall, so it's about halfway, about his abdomen, because we want it to kind of get absorbed into his body. And then for the scale, we're going to change everything down to 0.01. I don't want to do quite 0, because you might run into some issues there, but 0.01 is good enough, which means now we've gone from 1 to 0.01, and you can see it shrinks. There we go. So now if I hit play, you can see it go over and over again. Just like that. Okay? And you'll see these values go crazy over here because it's relative to where it is and all that. Now, pardon me. With that all set, we're all set there. So let's take a look at one of our other objects here. Let's just make sure all of that is good. Okay, very good. And you'll see up here in the corner that you're going to have these animator objects. So if I select this guy, you'll see here, animator objects up here. And I think that one's a little messed up, but you'll make sure that it will now have an animator because it's got that all set up. We're going to have to set up a controller for this. So we have the animation, and the animator component is the thing that kind of brings everything together, but we still need the actual component to tell the two how to talk to each other. So that's going to be this guy. So let me open this up and I'll show you what that looks like. That's going to be this guy here. All right. Now this looks crazy, but there's an animation and then there's animator. So let's go window, and you have animation. We need to make sure we open up animator right here. So this is the animator, and this is going to be the thing that we are going to make the changes here, and this is how the actual flow goes. All right. So to create this guy, let's go back to our console here. You see that there's two different icons here. This icon, which looks like a big play button in the middle, this is the actual animation. This is the thing we just did with all the little markers on the dope sheet, okay? So you'll see it actually says .anim. This guy is poorly named for my example here, but .controller, that's what you want. So you need to make a controller. So for that, if we go into my Fortnite folder, let's see here. Is it in here? No, where did I drop them at? I don't have these very organized. No, must be just at the base assets, which is terrible of me. I apologize. Anyway, I'll do it in the Fortnite folder. So if you right click and say create, you can do an animation controller. Okay, and you can give this a name. So I'm going to call this tutorial. Okay, and this is what it will look like right away. You just have these two states, and basically you're going from one state to another. So you're saying, if you're walking and you come to a wall, right, you have to stop walking because there's a wall in front of you, right? So you're going to go from the state of walking to standing still, or idle, as we call it with animation, all right? So if I bring up any of these, you'll see this is what we have done here. So the state of your initial here, I wish you could do these side by side with two different animator windows here. So you have your entry, which is how it comes into this whole thing. You have this any states, we can come from anywhere, and then you can right click and create your own states. All right. So by using these as a resource, I'm going to have to go back and forth, I'm sorry. So we're going to make a transition from both entry and any state to our animation here. So if I go to tutorial, and let's find our animation, right? So our animation is, say, this guy here. I'm going to drag and drop them right there. Okay, so we have our animation that I've brought into the animator. And now I'm saying, when you become alive, when the game starts, you start doing things. From entry, go right to this animation state. Okay? And I'm going to say, from any state, we want to go to the same thing. So here's what we're going to do. Even though we're going to right click and say make transition, and then click here. So now from any state, I can come here, and from the alive state, I come here. All right, here's the problem though. I don't actually want it to play the animation right here, right now. Because if I do that, it's just going to start playing the animation. It's going to loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and never stop. Which, that's not what we want. We want it to go when we tell it to. So what I'm going to do is go up here in this corner, click the little circle with the dot in it. This means you can select any animation, including ones that are not even for this thing. But I'm going to choose none. So we're going to say, even though this is the name of our animation, which is important, we don't really want it to play quite yet. So let's go back. And you'll see here, that's what I have here. There's this, and I've selected no animation, which seems weird at first, but we're going to go to this state. Then, now we're going to control going from this state to the actual playing of the animation, okay? And we're going to control that with these arrows and with some variables here, okay? So, back to our tutorial one, which I keep clicking away from it. Here we go. Okay. So we're here, and now we need to control going to the actual animation. Okay. So I'm going to create a new state. Let's create a state, empty, and we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call this play animation. Okay. Now we can choose our animations. I'm going to click this thing again, and now we want to find that animation, and it's called For me, it's called test item pickup. There you go. So that will now play that animation. Now, an important thing to note about that is if I go to that animation, if you click on it in the inspector here, or I'm sorry, in the asset browser here, in the inspector, uncheck this box that says loop time. That means that Unity wants to loop this animation, and we don't want it to loop. This is a one and done play. You know, it goes up, it shrinks, it goes into your body, and we're done. Okay? So set that, and then you can attach it here by clicking this. Now, we want to go from here to here when we tell it to. So the first thing we need is a way in which to tell it to do this. And the way we do that is a thing called a trigger. So here in the animator, up here in the corner, we have parameters, and I'm going to say new parameter, trigger. And I'm going to call this is animating. Okay, just something. You can call it whatever you want. So this is a trigger, and this is a true false, like a boolean, on or off. So now from here, I'm going to right click and say make transition to play animation. But I'm going to click on this in the middle and say your condition here, I'm going to add a condition, is animating. So we're going to look at the state of is animating, and based upon its state, if the state is true, if it's proper, we're going to go from here to here. Then I'm going to right click and say make transition and go back. Okay, so let's take a look at our reference again. You see we have the same thing here. Mine's called add to inventory, so that's the same thing. Note that up here, you want to uncheck for only the downspout here, for only going to the animation, uncheck the has exit time, and my settings are as follows. Exit time is grayed out, so it doesn't matter. Fixed duration, transition duration is 0.15, 0 for the offset, and none for the interruption source. Okay? Then on our way back up, for this guy, we do want the exit time. And the exit time here for me is 0.75, fixed duration, 0.25, 0, and none. And you can see you get this little overlap here to see how it smoothly transitions from one to the next. And you'll notice that there are no conditions for this guy. So once we've played the animation, we're going to go back into this state, and we're just done. Okay? That's all we care about. We only come down here and play the animation. It only loops one time. It does not loop, so it only plays once. And then we just say, after we're done, we wait a little bit of time, the exit time, and then we go back to here. Okay, and this will only go back again once that condition is true. So if we are not careful in our code and we leave it open as being true, it'll keep going. And we don't need the exit, but he's just kind of hanging out there. Okay, all of that will make everything work nicely, okay? So that's going to be that. Now, if we go to our item here, you'll see that the controller, you have to, ignore my crappy names here. I was experimenting with other things, but with your controller that you created, which looks like this, it looks like a little arrow with some boxes, and it looks kind of like this, boxes with arrows pointing to each other. Drag and drop that here into the controller spot, okay? Pardon me. Then mine are set, let's see, mine are set properly, yes. Apply root motion is off, culling mode is normal, and then always animate. All right, so that's all the complicated setup with creating the animation, and then we're assigning the animation inside of a controller. The controller is the thing that talks to the two things and says, hey, you're going to play this animation when these conditions are met. So now let's take a look at the changes we made in the code to make those conditions true. And as a note, the changes in this code are here for the base item here. So if I look at one of these guys, this guy here, where's the bullets? The bullets is a great example. So these guys are all set here, okay? I think that the bullets should have the animator turned on, but it's working without it turned on. So we'll take a look at that too. So right here, if I hit that, whoop, there you go. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of things, so let's take a look at the code changes. All right? So, new to our code here, we have a couple of private variables. We have a private game object to get a handle to the player, so that is _player. A private boolean called inRange, which we set to false. Private game object called item holder. A private animator called anim, so we're going to get a handle to the animator. A private game object called _BRS mechanics. And a private of BRS _ inventory manager type of _IM. And that's because we're getting a handle to the inventory manager. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We're almost there. So at the top of our start, we're going to do a couple of things. we're going to get a handle to the BRS mechanics. So this object that we have in our world here, right here, we're going to say that our variable is equal to find a game object with that name, which there's only going to be one right there. And we're going to set our IM, our inventory manager variable, equal to that object's get component of BRS inventory manager, which means there's a script on this component that we want to get a handle to. We want to get a handle to that right here. And we're going to save that handle as _IM. There we go. Now, we're going to get a handle to the item holder object. So that is our base object. So we look at our light bullets here as an example. We're going to get a handle to this object because we need to get a handle to the animator as well, right? So we do that by saying, this is a throwaway variable because we're only going to do it once. So var, I called it IH trans, so inventory handler, item holder trans for the transform is this.gameObject.transform.getChild1. So you'll notice it has two children. It has the UI offset base, that's going to be child 0 because it's 0 based indexing. And then the second item is actually index 1 is going to be the item holder model. So that's going to be this guy here. So then I'm going to say, okay, my item holder variable is going to be equal to the game object that is at that transform, which is this object. A little complicated, I know, but it works. Then we're going to say anim. So we're going to get a handle to the animator. So that's this guy over here, so that we can get into there and read out those values, right? So we're going to say anim equals item holder.getComponent animator. There we go. So now this is all the same. Now right here I did make one change because I did run into a bug. The text for the pickup. So the pickup button text, which is this text here for all these, it looks like it's F, but when you play the game, I changed it to T for my testing purposes. I added this one line to convert our pickup button text to lowercase. So pickup button text equals pickup button text dot to lower. The reason being, later down here, when we do, where is it here? Down here, if we press the button, yes. If input.getKey button down, we're parameterizing this, and this value must be lowercase. If you try to put a capital T, it doesn't work, but if you put a lowercase t, it works. So all I did was up here is to prevent you from having to manually hard code this, we just cast it to lowercase right away. There you go. Okay, so let's move down, and in this whole update function is new. So we're going to do several things, okay? So first of all, we did add this as well. So in the on trigger, if we are colliding with a thing that is tagged as the player, we want to do something. We want to say save our _player object so we can actually save that and access the player later on, okay? So if we are sure it's the player, save this variable as the game object that triggered us so we know that it's the player. And if we've collided with the trigger, set our in-range variable to true. We're now in range to pick up the item. We're in that box. And then the same is true here, that if we are exiting the trigger, then set our in range to false. The reason that's important is right here is we want to say that if we press the appropriate button and the two ampersands here, and if in range is true, meaning we are in range, we're going to do a couple of things. Right here, this is going to be filled in later. We're going to gather up all the inventory information we need. Is it an item? Is it a weapon? How much ammo does it have? All that stuff. We're going to gather that later for our video on the actual inventory. Now, we're going to set the transform, the parent of this item to the player's transform. That's why we had to get a handle to the player. Because this way we can put the item right at their feet, and when we play the animation, it's going to be relative to their feet. So we want to make sure that it's starting at the right point, right? And this means that now it's a child of the player. So this allows you to pick up the item and keep running, and it will continue to play the animation, and it will follow with you, okay? Then we're going to move it to the 0 position. So this.transform.local position, that's very important. Local position equals vector3.0, meaning move this to the 0, 0, 0 for the player, wherever the player is at. Relative to the player, move to 0, 0, 0. Then we're going to call this function on our other script called add to inventory. And eventually we're going to pass in the data that we have gathered, okay? But for now, we'll look at what this actually calls in just a second. Then here, finally, anim.setTrigger add to inventory. So if you take a look at our animator here, when we had this whole thing set up, this guy coming down, that's his condition. So whatever you called this, for my example, I called it add to inventory. That's the name of this trigger, this true or false thing here. So in the code, finally, now that we're all done gathering the information, we've moved ourselves to the player, we've moved ourselves to the 0 point of the player, we've sent off the information for what kind of inventory we should add. We're now going to set this to true. That means that our animation will drop through and play. And then we're going to wait 1 second, and we're going to destroy ourselves. So destroy the object now that we have captured it. So destroy game object one float. It's not quite 1 second, but it will do it after the animation is finished playing. So we'll destroy the object and it disappears from the world. Now, really quick, the function that we're calling here on that other script, let's take a look at that other script. So here's our other script, and it literally has only one function. Well, there's a start and an update, but our function called add to inventory, all it does right now is it just calls debug.log to say, hey, this was added to our inventory. But eventually this is the thing that's going to say, if you have a system like Fortnite where there's a number of slots, which slot does it go into? How much ammo do you have? It's going to keep track of all of that statistics in this space, okay? But this is the catcher for this guy bats off or throws the ball and says, here's all the data you need. This guy will catch it here and say, cool, I'm going to put it away. All right, so those are the two scripts you need. So to make this work, all you have to do is update the script on this base object for these guys, okay? And then, let me see these over here. Yeah, these are unchecked for the animator here, but it seems to be working. So I'm going to take a look at that in just a second. And then on the BRS mechanics, add the BRS inventory manager. And the two will talk to each other. So for example, let's clear off our console and do a play. Let's take a look now let me undo the maximize on play so we can actually see it. So now for every single item that we pick up, we should see down here, it'll say added to inventory, okay? So I'm gonna pick up that item, there we go, added to inventory, pardon me, 1. So if I pick up these objects, and if you look over here, you'll notice they disappear from the world because they're being destroyed afterwards. So there you go, that one, 2 items picked up, 3 items picked up. And again, as I mentioned, because we are moving this to the base, I can actually run past this object. And as I run past it, I'll be able to pick it up. So let me come over here, and I'm gonna run past it and pick it up along the way. So just like this. So I'll take that with me and see it followed me all the way over here. And you can see down here, I've now picked up 5 items and they're disappearing. So all of these items will disappear, including this fab here. All of that will disappear in a second here when I pick up all these items. So watch this. I'm gonna just pick everything up. Boom, 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 boom. And there you go. There's nothing left in the world except the ground, my character, the light, all this stuff here, camera, terrain, and the BRS mechanics. So we've picked up all 13 objects, and here they are. So that means that this function was called 13 times, once for every object. We told the manager, hey, here's an object in the world that I just picked up, and here's everything you need to know about it. So we have all of the bases set up for doing a proper inventory system. So now I've been taking lots of notes, like I said, and we're going to start talking about 2 different types of systems, a weight-based system and a slot-based system. And now we have our objects, and our objects are now able to pass along the information about themselves. So they can tell the manager, hey, I'm, wood resource here, and I'm worth 3 or 10 resources. So that's going to tell the inventory manager, and when it gets data, it's going to have to tell the screen to update the, pictures and all that. So there's a lot going on here, but we're getting there one piece at a time, guys. I don't want to overwhelm you, and I wanted to make sure that it's clear, and I want to examine and explain what's going on and why. Because I don't just want to give you something and there you go, it works or it doesn't, and we spend hours debugging it together. I want you to learn from this and become better, and then that way you know how to do this cool stuff. And who knows, there'll be a day where I'm trying to do something and I ask you guys for help. So it's always beneficial for everybody to just learn more and be better about all of their craft. So I hope you guys have enjoyed very much. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I know it's complicated stuff, so bear with me, but please try to follow the instructions exactly, and it really helps when we're debugging. And if you do have issues, I'm very willing to help, but please send pictures of what your hierarchy looks like here, what your inspector looks like here, and make sure that you're using the exact code. If you've changed things, then I don't know what you changed. I want to help you, but I need to have the data here so I can help you guys out. So really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for all the kind attention. It's been awesome. Let's keep going. Let's keep getting the sub count out. Let's get everybody excited, and let's keep making some awesome games. So until next time, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.